There we go.
No sé. Tal vez no vas a estar aquí el jueves y viernes. No sé.
Oh, we don't know. Yeah. It'll be ice. Don't jinx it.
Hola chicos,
Hola.
¿cómo están? Bien. Hola. Ok chicos, hoy vamos a aprender algo nuevo. ¿Ok? Se llama subjetivo or subjunctive. So you know how you guys have learned like present tense and past tense? Well, we're going to learn something called the subjunctive. But what's different about the subjunctive is it's not about like a time period, like what you learned before, like it's a mood. So if I wanted to say give a recommendation, or if I wanted to say, I really doubt that it's going to snow on Thursday, that is the time that we would use the subjunctive. So we're going to watch a video. Ustedes van a aprender cómo conjugar al conjugate el subjuntivo. Es muy similar de los mandatos. Y después vamos a aprender cuándo es necesario usar el subjuntivo. ¿Ok? ¿Ustedes comprenden? ¿Sí? Ok, entonces primero vamos a mirar el video.
En esta lección vamos a aprender a cambiar los verbos al presente subjuntivo. In this video, you might watch the previous video where I explain what the subjunctive mood in Spanish is, more or less. Watch that video. In this video, we'll be talking about how we change verbs into the present subjunctive. Of course, you'll notice that the way that we change verbs into the present subjunctive will very closely resemble the command forms. Let's look at most verbs. First, let's take a look at the AR verbs. For most AR verbs, we'll take the infinitive form of the verb, take off the AR, and add the following endings. Hemos, es, en. For hablar, we change to hable, hables, hable, hablemos, habléis, hablen. Llamar would change to llame, llames, llame, llamemos, llaméis, llamen. Esperar would change to espere, esperes, espere, esperemos, esperéis, esperen. Pensar would change to piense, pienses, piense, pensemos, penséis, piensen. As we can see with pensar, the AR stem changing verbs, or SHU verbs, change like the normal present tense, but with the subjunctive endings. Of course, if they end in CAR, GAR, or ZAR, we'll see the following changes. R would change to sake, saques, sake, saquemos, saquéis, saquen. Buscar would change to busque, busques, busque, busquemos, busquéis, busquen. And tocar would change to toque, toques, toque, toquemos, toquéis, and toquen. The AR verbs we have llegar would change to llegue, llegues, llegue, lleguemos, lleguéis, lleguen. Pagar would change to pague, pagues, pague, paguemos, paguéis, paguen. And jugar would change to juegue, juegues, juegue, juguemos, juguéis, jueguen. R is again a stem changer, and so we see that stem change in the normal locations, but with these endings. How about some ZARs? Abrazar, to hug, abrace, abraces, abrace, abracemos, abracéis, abracen. cruzar, cruce, cruces, cruce, crucemos, crucéis, crucen. Gozar, goce, goces, goce, gocemos, gocéis, gocen. Look at some ER verbs. For most ER verbs, we'll take off the ER and add the following endings. A, as, a, amos, ais, an. Some examples. Comer will change to coma, comas, coma, comamos, comais, coman. Leer will change to lea, leas, lea, leamos, leais, lean. Volver will change to vuelva, vuelvas, vuelva, volvamos, volváis, vuelvan. Will change to tenga, tengas, tenga, tengamos, tengáis, tengan. Notice that ER stem changing or shoe verbs change just like they normally do, only with subjunctive endings. Tener has an irregular yo form and will follow the formula of a verb change to the yo form minus the o plus the endings a, as, a, amos, ais, an. Now let's look at some IR verbs. For regular IR verbs, we'll add the same endings that we did for the ER verbs. A, as, a, amos, ais, an. Some examples, we have escribir, escriba, escribas, escriba, escribamos, escribáis, escriban. Vivir would change to viva, vivas, viva, vivamos, viváis, vivan. Dormir would change to duerma, duermas, duerma, durmamos, durmáis, duerman. Decir would change to diga, digas, diga, digamos, digáis, digan. IR stem changing verbs or shoe verbs change just like they normally do, but they have a strange change outside of the shoe. Notice in the nosotros and vosotros forms, E to IE, and E to I would change to E to I. O to UE will change to O to U. So we have durmamos and durmais. O changes to a U. That decir has an irregular yo form, and it will follow the formula a verb changed to the yo form minus the O plus the endings a, as, a, amos, ais, an. Finally, there are some irregular verbs. An easy way to remember them is that the first letter of each one spells out dishes. Dar will be de, des, de, demos, des, den. Ir would be vaya, vayas, vaya, vayamos, vayáis, vayan. Would be sepa, sepas, sepa, sepamos, sepáis, sepan. Haber would be haya. Dar would be este, estés, este, estemos, estéis, estén. And ser would be sea, seas, sea, seamos, seáis, sean. But if this is all confusing for you, let me break it down. Here's a checklist of things to ask yourself to simplify the rules a little. Is the verb irregular? Change accordingly. If no, keep going. Does the verb have an irregular yo form? If yes, change it to the yo form in the present tense. Ejemplo, digo, conozco, hago, pongo. The O to step 3. Keep going. Is the verb a stem changer? Yes, change it to its present tense forms. Then remove the O, as, a, amos, ais, an, or o, es, e, amos, eis, en at the end. And don't forget that IR verbs will change E to I and O to U in the nosotros and vosotros forms. Then skip to step 3. If it's not, keep going. The verb end in CAR, GAR, or ZAR? Yes, take off the AR, then change C to QU, G to GU, and Z to C. Up to step 3. No, keep going. If the verb isn't one of these exceptions, it's considered regular. So start with step 1. And that's pretty pretty much it for this video, explaining how we form verbs into the present subjunctive in Spanish.
Ok, chicos. Es muy similar de los mandatos, ¿sí? ¿Qué piensan ustedes, sí? Entonces, ahora vamos a aprender cuándo es necesario usar el subjuntivo y cómo usar el subjuntivo, ¿sí? In order to know when to use the subjunctive in Spanish, we can remember the word weirdo, okay? First, you should understand that the subjunctive ordinarily does not occur by itself. The subjunctive occurs after certain other verbs that we call weirdo verbs. So we're going to use weirdo to remember what kind of verb we should use with the subjunctive, okay? So here's how it works. Here we have 3 examples of the subjunctive. Can you guys point out any similarities that you see between the 3 sentences? Like, what do you see in common between all 3? Yes. Each of these sentences have the word K in them. This K is what connects this first verb to the second verb. So there are 2 verbs in each one, right? And if you look at these first one, do they have a changing? So there's like the end. Do we change the end to the opposite on the first ones? No, it's just how we would normally conjugate them. It's the second verb that changes. The verb that is blue, those are the subjunctives. So these pink ones right here, these are examples of weirdo verbs that tell us we have to use subjunctive. And just like we said, the subjunctive comes after the word K. So here are what we know for the weirdo verbs. So for weirdo, the W stands for wishes and wants. So they're expressed by all, these are a couple of them, but there are lots more, but these are the most common. So verbs like querer, esperar, insistir. You guys know a lot of verbs like this, right? So wishes and wants. These would be subjunctive because it's not something that's like very certain, right? This is something that you're wanting, but you don't have it, so it's not certain, right? Here we have some more examples. So like in this first one, Ana espera que su novio la invite a cenar. Does anybody know what that sentence is saying?
Wait for the snow or the cloud.
So this first sentence with Ana is saying that Ana is hoping that her boyfriend will invite her to dinner. So it's a hope she has, like a desire, right? So she doesn't know if he's gonna invite her, but she's wanting him to, right? Do you guys see like the pattern so far? Are you understanding a little bit? Do you guys have questions so far? No? Okay. So E is for emotions. And here are some more examples. So we have like alegrarse, encantar, enojarse. And a lot of times you can use a star with emotion adjective like estar contento, like a etc. Right? Oh. Okay. Aquí tenemos más ejemplos. Yo estoy alegre que Lara no tenga problemas. What's that one? ¿Alguien tiene una idea? It's saying, I'm happy that Laura does not have problems. So you're happy about it. It's an emotion. So what you're happy about is Laura not having problems. And we have the K connecting the two verbs, right? So I'm happy that Laura does not have problems. You guys see that? See? Okay. The I in weirdo is for impersonal expressions. So we're going to use ace and then an adjective. And these are known as impersonal expressions. And there's lots of them, but here's just the more common ones. Es bueno, es malo, es curioso. You guys know stuff like this, right? So for example, es importante que prestes atención. It's important that you pay attention, right? Es raro que Elena no querría explicar. It's rare that Elena doesn't want to explain. Okay. R is for recommendations, or requirements or requests. So verbs like decir, desear, recomendar, hacer. ¿Recomiendas que yo compre la bicicleta? Do you recommend that I buy the bicycle? Do you guys see how these aren't very certain in what they're saying? It's kind of like a little bit of doubt almost in every one. Like there's not always certainty. Like, do you recommend it? It's not like they say you have to have this bike. They're asking, do you recommend it? So it's not certain. The D in weirdo stands for doubt and denial. So I think you guys learned the verb dudar with your vocab, right? Doubt. We also have negar, no creer, no pensar. But what if I said creo, okay? I believe that or I think that. Do you think that would be subjective? No. So if it says no creer or no pensar, those are subjective. You don't think. But if I want to say pienso or creo, those will not be subjective. Yo dudo que Marcos venga a tiempo. I doubt that Marcos will come on time. If it's O, it's for ojalá. Have any of you ever heard the word ojalá? Ojalá is a word that we use in Spanish that means I wish, I hope, it would be nice. And it comes from a word where it originally means may God grant. Okay? So we just use ojalá, it's just a phrase. Okay? So, ojalá que haga sol. I hope that it is sunny. Okay. Ojalá que tengamos suficiente tiempo. I hope that we have enough time. Sufficient amount of time, right? See how that one works? Just to review. What's the W stand for? Wants and wishes. The E? Emotions. I? Impersonal expressions. The R? Recommendations. Good job. The D? Doubt, denial. And the O? Ojalá. So just an important reminder. The first pink verb, that's the weirdo verb. We don't change the endings of those verbs. Those are normally conjugated, right? The blue one on the end, that's the subjunctive that we have to swap the ending. And the word K is what puts it all together to allow us to use the subjunctive. Es todo, okay? ¿Ustedes tienen preguntas subjuntivo. Vamos a practicar con el subjuntivo. En Google Classroom hay un documento para ustedes. Aquí tenemos apuntes. These are just some notes on Weirdo. It might be easier to look at this document to go back to refer to. It has it written out pretty clear. Then on Google Classroom right here, we have this document, okay? Aquí ustedes tienen que escribir la forma de yo del verbo y después tienes que escribir el subjuntivo. Okay, aquí tenemos el sujeto, so you're just gonna put it in the subjunctive based on who the subject is, okay? And that's how it's gonna work the entire way through. ¿Ustedes tienen preguntas?
Will you go over just the first one? As an example?
Yeah.
It's like I get the yo form, but then I don't understand this.
So what's the yo form of poner?
Pongo.
Pongo. So then the subjunctive, what are we gonna do to put it in the to form? Does anybody have an idea?
Pongos.
Yeah, so you're gonna take off the O of pongo and you're gonna put the opposite ending because poner is ER verb, right? So we would have pongas. Good job. Does that make sense? Sí.
I thought you only did the yoke forms for certain ones, or are these just the ones that you did the yoke forms for?
So,
Cause the other ones I thought you said you just conjugated like normally, and then.
so the ones that we conjugate normally, those are the weirdo verbs that you put at the beginning of the sentence, like I recommend, recomiendo, or yo do, I doubt. But then after the word K, we can put the subjunctive verb.
So the subjunctive, you always go to the yoke first?
Go to the yo, take off the O. And remember to think about if it's a stem changer, if it's a carb or auxiliary verb. But if you go to your notes, it kind of explains everything for you and it gives you examples as well. Okay? Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay, yo estoy aquí si ustedes tienen preguntas, okay?